Hi, my name is Ryan Stewart and I'm obsessed with horses. While this may sound like the beginning of an AA speech, I can assure you that it's not. It's my story and I'm here to share it with you. First off, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am currently a junior here at Frisco High School. I'm an only child. I have 3 cats named Tessa, Gabby, and Tucker. I'm a volunteer at a horse ranch in Whitesboro called St. Colt Company. I've been there for about 3 years now. I'm on the Frisco High School Dairy Cattle Judging Team, and I'm the president of the Frisco FFA. Here's just a couple pictures. In the middle is me and my 2 best friends, Katie and Alex. On the left is me and Alex again, and on the right is a picture of me and my mom. And I can honestly say that without my mom's constant love and support of everything I do, that I would not be the person I am today and where I am in life. I'd like to start out with my quote to explain my ISM journey. The quote I chose was, "If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got," and that was said by Pat Pirelli. I felt like I could apply this to both my ISM experience as well as career experience after college. In ISM, I feel like I can apply it to my work ethic. So say I am kind of a slacker the entire year, but I expect a great project. It's not going to come out that way because I'm not working to the best of my abilities. But if I keep slacking off and expecting to get that end result of that amazing project, it's never going to happen. But if I change the way I think and I start working to my fullest ability, then I can start reaching that goal of having an amazing final product. And connecting it to the equine industry, if I have a horse that I'm training and I'm using the exact same training technique on that specific horse and it works, then I'm going to think that it works on every single horse. But say I have a horse that has different needs and issues, but I still use that same training technique, it might not work. But if I change the way that I train him and it ends up working, then I will get a different result. The next step in my ISM journey was starting with interviews. So we had to interview at least 5 professionals in our industry and then eventually choose one to be our mentor. So I ended up having 6 informational interviews. My first one was with Bob Dorn. I really felt that I got a lot of information out of my interview with him. He was very honest, but there was one thing that he said that kind of irked me. I had asked him what his favorite or what the hardest part of his job was, and he told me that women in the industry, in the equine industry, think that they kind of own the place. Like they'll come in and tell him how to train his horses and what he's doing right and what he's not doing right, and that they just think that they are the talk of the town. And I was so baffled that he would say this to me because I am a woman and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Because in my opinion, I would never tell someone how to train their own horse. To me, that's like another parent telling another parent like how they should parent their child. Those are kind of like their babies in a sense, and the way that they choose to train them is how they're expressing themselves and how they're going to make their mark in the horse industry. So I don't believe that they have that right to do that to other trainers. So I just found that kind of weird, but I learned a lot from my interview with him. My second interview was with Mary Hopper, and she owns a barrel racing ranch in Aubrey. I really, really liked her and enjoyed the interview very much. Unfortunately, she was not a trainer. She was just the owner of the facility and she gave lessons, but I still ended up learning a lot. She had told me that barrel racing is kind of like the redneck sport in the equine world, and I had to laugh because I never realized how true that was until she explained it. She told me that some girls or guys will bring their horses in and say, "I have a barrel horse because he can turn a trash can." And she just kind of laughs because there's so much more to barrel horses than just turning around a barrel or a trash can or a tree. They have to pick up their front end and be able to swing their hind end around the barrel, and they have to be fast and pick up speed, and they have to be able to stop. And so she said that since a lot of people come to her thinking that way, she has to explain that that's not really how it works. And she kind of used the analogy of cutting horses, which cutting horses cut cows in arenas for competitions. And so she said, if you went and sat on any horse, you wouldn't say, oh, this is a cutting horse. Cutting horses are specifically trained very closely and critically that they know what they're supposed to do. There's no way that you would get on any horse and say, this is a cutting horse. And so she said, there's no way that you can sit on any horse and say that this is a barrel horse. And I found that to be very, very true and very interesting. My third interview was with Punk Carter, and he trained cutting horses. I had never really gotten an up-close look at the cutting horse industry because I'm not exposed to that. I'm more exposed to just the breaking and training side of the equine industry, so I was really excited to talk to him. And I asked him what's so different about training cutting horses than any other type of discipline, such as barrels or jumpers or reining horses. And he said that cutting horses are so well trained that you could basically put a monkey on them and that they could still be able to do their job. If you ever watch a cutting horse in a competition, it looks like the rider is not doing anything. It looks like they automatically know where to go. They turn left, they turn right, and they stop automatically. And to me, watching them, it's so amazing just because they're so well trained that they know their job and they know what to do. And I found that to be super cool, that he trains those horses to be so well behaved. And I also asked him why people would want cutting horses because they're so expensive. Like, why would they come to him to buy them and stuff? And so he told me that a lot of people will come and buy reject cutting horses just because they still have that ability and that mindset of that training techniques, but they're a lot less expensive versus if you go and buy a top-notch cutting horse, they're probably like $50,000. So, I mean, no one wants to pay that much money for a horse whenever you could buy one that's as equally well-trained for a much lower price. My fourth interview was with Tiffany Williams, and she trains show jumping horses. And my favorite question to ask them is, what's your favorite breed to work with? And every single one said quarter horse except for Miss Williams, and she said thoroughbred. And so I was very curious as to why she picked thoroughbreds over quarter horses. And she told me that she likes to take them from the track and kind of rehabilitate them, teach them that there's more to life than running in circles. And so I thought that was really nice and sweet that she likes to kind of take the ugly duckling, so to say, and take them under her wing, and train them to enjoy life and not just work all the time. My fifth interview was with Martin Campbell, and I would have to say that this was probably the most informational, but as well as strange. Whenever I got there, there was no one around. There was no one to be seen, and I was very, very confused. So I called him, and I was like, hi, I'm the high school student that's supposed to meet with you today. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'll be out in a second. And so, like, 5 minutes goes by, and I'm still standing outside wondering, like, what the heck is going on? And all of a sudden, I hear a motor start, and off in the distance, there's, like, a little old man getting on a lawnmower. And I'm super confused, and he just starts, like, riding over. And he, like, gets up next to me and just kind of stops, and he looks at me, and he's like, well, come on. And I was like, okay. And we went and sat down, but it was probably the strangest thing that I've ever experienced. But whenever we were walking up the porch, I could tell why he used it. He was just this little frail old man, and you could tell that he's been doing this for a really long time. But whenever we ended up talking for a really long time, just because he had so much to say about my questions, and he answered them in depth, and I really appreciated that. He was very honest, and I could tell that he didn't tell me just what I wanted to hear. He didn't put any sugar on it, which was good for me, so I knew really what to expect. My last interview was with Sandy Holt, and she works at Winter Haven Ranch, which is also in Aubrey. And whenever I got there and we started talking, she was kind of talking like she didn't do any training. And it just brought me back to, oh my gosh, is she another one that doesn't train? And so I asked her, I was like, do you do the training here? And she's like, oh yeah, I do all of it. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, great. And so then I asked her like what kind of training she does, and she said that she trains like any discipline. And my heart like lit up. I was like, oh my gosh, you're the person that I've been looking for, because that's what I want to do. I want to have somebody bring their horse to me and say, I want this, this, and this, and I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to be as useful as I can in the equine industry. And so talking with her was really great, because since that is what I want to do, I basically got a look like into the future, and looks pretty good. So after all of my interviews, I was asked to pick a mentor. So my mentor for this year is Chris Ruthven. And no, you're not mistaken. He was not on the previous slide. I did not have an interview with him. But I've been working with Chris for 3 years now. He is the co-owner and head trainer at CNC Colt Company, where I volunteer. It's been so amazing being able to work with someone that I already had a close relationship with. It was a lot easier to get on that level of connection and being able to ask a lot more questions than if I was with someone new, because maybe I was scared. But it was really amazing being able to work with him this year. Chris is originally from New Zealand, and he was a jockey when he was younger. He was also a professional bull rider. He trained horses in New Zealand, Japan, and the United States. And in his free time, if he's not working with horses outside, then he's inside watching golf. And if he's not inside watching golf, he's outside. Oh, I'm so sorry, I messed that up. If he's not outside working with the horses, he's inside watching rugby. And if he's not inside watching rugby, he's outside playing golf. So a lot of times, if it's raining or if it's too hot outside, I'll just sit in there with him and watch rugby, or he likes watching golf or just like random TV shows, and it's really funny. It's fun just being able to hang out with him. My next step on my ISM journey was to conduct some research and write some assessments over them. At first, I was really confused on what to research. I didn't have a lot of guidance. Being in the independent study, we were basically kind of pushed out onto a ledge by ourselves and was told, figure it out. And so at first I just started Googling random horse-related events or things that I had been to. But towards the middle of the year, I started figuring out what I wanted to study, what I wanted to research, what I wanted to know. And so my topics vary very profusely. So I studied the Mustang Makeover Challenge, horse slaughter, Pat Pirelli, Liberty training, the horsenality test, Jillian Kreinbring, and buying your first horse. There was one research topic that caught my attention the most, and that was Liberty training. I had never really heard of it before I did more research on it. I found an article online and was really provoked by all the information in it, and so I just continued to research it. And so Liberty is their bonding exercises that you do with your horse. It's mainly groundwork, and it was created to help humans establish a greater connection with their horses. So a lot of horses, if they come from abused homes or you buy them off of somebody else, they don't know you, and they're probably going to be scared and nervous about coming into a new environment. And so by doing these exercises, you can bond with them and establish that trust. So I found this to be really interesting, because whenever I think of training, I more think of riding, and it was really neat to me that there are other sides of training. because this was a training method, I wondered, well, are there any other training methods like this that aren't necessarily riding training techniques, but maybe just training techniques in general? And so this article sparked my interest for my original work. And for my original work, I wrote a 5-page analysis over 6 different training methods. And they were Liberty, equine clicker training, the 7-step safety system, Pirelli, habituation, and natural horsemanship. Learning about all of these was super beneficial to me because about 3 or 4 of them I had never heard of. And I really enjoyed learning about them because it made me think, can I use these in the future? Which one do I want to use in the future? And I really enjoyed this assignment. So in each kind of section of my paper, it was the title of the training technique along with a description of the process, the pros and cons of each, and my opinion if I had one. Some of them were just kind of steps listed out, and so I couldn't base opinion off of just the little that I read, but the ones I could, I definitely put it in there. And so the steps for my original work, first I had to research techniques and make a list of all the different ones that I wanted to, or that I could find really. And I started out with a list of maybe 12, but ended up narrowing them down to 6 because after I researched them, I found articles to read over them, and then I read them. And some of them were either combined with a different technique to make kind of the same training method, so I eliminated that, or some of them weren't training methods, but a different website said it was. So I ended up narrowing it down to 6, which was good because I think if I had any more than 6, I would have broke my computer from typing so much. After I read the articles, as I said, I eliminated the inefficient ones, and then I went back and reread the ones that I knew I was using, and after that I wrote my analysis. After writing my analysis, I was very intrigued by the different training techniques, and mostly I wanted to know more information about natural horsemanship. And so my question to myself was, can I train a horse using natural horsemanship techniques, and will it work? And so this brings me to my final product. For my final product, I trained this guy up here. His name is Knight, and he is a 4-year-old American paint horse. Yes, he is all black, and it's not rare for them to be like this, but they're called crop outs. And so his mom is a full-blood paint, and so is his dad, but his mom is a crop out as well, and his dad is black and white, and so he ended up being solid black, which I found him super cool because he stands out in a crowd of paint horses. So he had little previous training. He has been halter broken, which means that when he was a baby, they took a halter and kind of like rubbed it around his face and trained him to be haltered so he could be led around. He had been saddled before, but not very many times, and he had also had some desensitizing, which is like swinging ropes and taking plastic bags and rubbing them on him, just trying to get him not so spooky around things. So the first day was good to learn about, but not super fun. He had been saddled before, and so Chris just showed me techniques on saddling him to make sure that I don't do it too fast, I don't make the saddle too tight on him, and also to allow him time to think in between putting each piece on so that he knows that it's not going to hurt him and that he can just be relaxed. And so on the first day, I saddled him and we put the bridle on him, which the bridle is the headstall and the bit, which is what controls him when you're riding. And he had never had one in his mouth before, and he was super confused. He didn't know what to do with it. He just kind of played with it in his mouth a lot, but we left it. Normally bits are supposed to be kind of tighter up in their mouth so they know where to hold it, but because he had never had this training before, we left it loose so that he could figure out where to put it so he would learn. And so this is the video of him having the bit in his mouth for the first time. So he was rubbing his face on the fence a lot, trying to get it off, and he was super frustrated. But he eventually found that one spot to hold it in his mouth where it's going to end up to be. So that was good, and that's what we wanted to teach him by leaving it loose, so that he would put it up into his mouth versus just like playing with it with his tongue the entire time. On the second day, we did, I guess we could call it like mounting block training. So a mounting block is just kind of like stairs we use to get onto them so it doesn't hurt their back as much versus getting up from the ground, because it puts a lot of pressure on their back. And so he's never had anyone kind of like on a different level than him. Everyone's always smaller than him. And so what we did is we took the mounting block and I would put it on his side and then just stand on it. I wouldn't get on him, but I would just stand on the mounting block and like pet him and say good boy and stuff like that, and just to teach him that whenever people are going to get on and off of him, that it's not a bad thing, and also to try and start teaching him to stand still. And there are two videos of the same thing, but the first one is kind of a bad example and the second one is a good example. On the first one, you can kind of tell that he's pretty tense. His ears are pointed straight forward, and he's not really paying attention to anything that I'm doing, which can be good and bad. But whenever I try going up farther, he gets nervous and starts walking off. And so I move the block and then try it again. So on this one, he's got his head down a little lower. He's more relaxed. He was. Then all the horses are on that other side, so he pays attention to them a lot at times versus me. But it made things easier during some parts. But on this one, he's learning to just kind of like accept it and not like move his feet so much, and that's what we were trying to teach him, is having someone above him is not a bad thing, and for him not to freak out and move his feet. On the same day, we also started adding weight and pressure into the saddle, and so I would put my foot in the stirrup and then kind of lean on him and just add that pressure in that one spot. And so here is the first video, and this is a very, very bad example because this is the first time that I ever did it, but it's good going back and watching it because I've learned so much from that. But if you notice, I take my foot and I put all of my weight onto him, and he stumbles, and that's because he didn't know I was going to do that. He didn't know that I was going to put my entire body weight onto him, and so I knocked him off balance. And Chris told me, he was like, whoa, slow down, you're going way too fast. And that was definitely one of my problems starting out, is I moved way too fast, and I would always add more pressure than I needed to. And so after learning from that and talking with Chris, he told me, he was like, try again. And so this was the second video, or the second time I did it, and it was a lot better. So I just kind of like, I put my foot in there, and then you'll see that I stand on my tiptoes and then get off, and he doesn't get knocked off balance. Like, he moves and I get down, but he's not like, whoa, what the heck are you doing? And so it was good that that I could learn to slow down to accommodate his needs, which is basically what training is learning to speak their language so you can communicate with them and train them to be better horses. On the same day, the next step was to actually lay across his back, and I was surprised at how like fast we moved. It only took about 7 or 8 days to get to the point of where he is now, which I found to be very interesting, because I thought it would take way longer than that. So whenever I laid across his back, it adds more pressure and more weight to the saddle, giving him a better feel of what an actual rider would be, but not the entire thing. It also is teaching him to stay still whenever someone's getting on him, because I have the rope in one hand and can kind of like pull on his face if he starts going off, but sometimes he doesn't listen. Sometimes he's a brat, but most of the time he's good. So I go at it kind of from an angle so that the saddle doesn't tip over, because if you just go from it straight from his side, it goes to it goes all the way to the side. So Chris told me to go at it from an angle and kind of point towards his ears, and that would just keep all the weight in the middle of his back, which is also simulating a rider's weight. And he did very, very good. I was very surprised. He had no cares in the world. I was expecting him to be like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Like if someone sat on my back, I'd freak out. So I was very impressed at how well he was taking everything. The last thing that we did that day was I trotted him around the square pin just to let him kind of relax and let some of that energy out. But after working with him all that day, he was tired and he didn't want to trot. And so watch this video and his behavior on whenever I ask him to step up into that trot. What are some things that you guys are noticing about him?
Like it's going for a while and then he comes.
Yeah, and it took me a lot to get him going. Like he was just like kind of trudging along, and then I'd have to like really get up towards his back end to make him go. And normally I have a whip, and so I'll just shake the end and he'll go, but I had to like get close to him and like shake it harder, and so it took a lot of pressure for him to get up and get going. But there will be a video towards the end, and I'm excited for y'all to see how much progress he has made. On day 3, we moved him into the round pen. So whenever we started training, we started him off in the square pen, and this allows him access to corners. So if he gets nervous, he can go into one and he has time to just kind of stop. But the round pen is a circle, and so he can't hide in those corners, and he kind of has to just keep on going. And so this is a video from whenever we first put him in there. He was really anxious and really nervous, and he was just trotting, and he would just keep going and going and going. And then something else that he would do is he would trot really fast and then turn into the fence like he is now. And so I would correct him because I didn't want him to go that way, and he was just like that the entire time. Just like he was really uptight, and he kept his head held high. And normally when they're relaxed, they'll like relax their neck muscles and bring them down. And he was super uptight and nervous. And until the very, very end, we did not get a relaxed walk. So this was taken at the very end, and this is what we were looking for. So if you'll notice, he's got his head down, he's got a slow walk, like nothing's really bothering him. He's not trying to use the trot as an escape. He is just relaxing and taking it easy. He's like, oh, nothing's trying to hurt me, I'm okay. But because it was a new place, he had no idea what to expect. After that, we put driving reins on him, which are very, very, very long reins.